Are we good to go yet? Or okay, I'm just waiting for the technical to get sorted out here. Because it's 10 o'clock. Okay, we're good. All right. Okay, I'm calling to order the Planning and Economic Development Advisory Committee meeting at 10 o'clock. We begin this gathering by acknowledging and celebrating these traditional lands as a gathering place for the First Peoples and their ancestors who are entrusted to care for Mother Earth since time immemorial. We do so respecting both the land and the Indigenous peoples who continue to walk with us through this world. Today, the county is committed to working with Indigenous peoples and all residents to pursue a united path of reconciliation. Now I'm looking towards the adoption of the agenda.
Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Vanderwall, that the agenda for the October 23rd, 2025 meeting of the Planning and Economic Development Advisory Committee be adopted.
Any discussion, any changes suggested? All those in favor? Carried. Now, any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof by anyone on council? Seeing none, we have no councillors online. Correct? Okay. Adoption of the minutes.
Moved by Councillor Leonard, seconded by Ms. Leishman, that the minutes of the Planning and Economic Development Advisory Committee meeting held September 25th, 2025 be adopted.
Okay, any amendments to the minutes? Any changes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. You want me to pause for a minute while we work on the technical piece? No.
You get to hear your choice.
Let me know when I can. Okay. Okay. Now we have a presentation by Mr. Steve Leonard. He'll address the Planning and Economic Development Advisory Committee regarding the Township of South Frontenac official plan. There'll be a 10-minute maximum for the presentation and look forward to hearing about it. Thank you very much. Would you like to approach and push the button for the red button in the middle to have your voice? So when we speak, you can't hear me right now? Yeah. Okay. Okay. We'll try, make sure that anybody asks questions, speak up loudly. And speak low. Usually that's better for people with hearing difficulties. You didn't catch that. Okay, well, I don't know whether, do we have a volume on our PA system? I'm looking at CAO right now. Yeah.
Steve, you do need to push the button so that the red light comes on and speak right into the microphone.
I got that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay, so we'll start for now because you're going to do the talking for the first 10 minutes.
I don't think it's gonna take me quite that long.
Okay, good. Well,
Anyway, I'm Stephen Leonard. Thank you for having me here today. I live in Harrismith, Ontario, with Hardington, beside the new development. I guess the reason I'm here is due to this prime agriculture zoning. I really don't know how this works, but anyway, it's not, from what I can understand, it's not prime agriculture. Prime agriculture has to meet certain criteria. The last time the land was Canadian land inventory done for the classification of the properties in the land was 1960, to the best of my knowledge. I was speaking to the MPP's office, and they said in order to have property zoned that, sorry, my handwriting is not the best, or designated, it must be done properly, not just assumed. When they said done properly, they meant drill test holes, do soil samples, so on and so forth, determine the quality of the land for prime agriculture. Now, South Frontenac office staff said they had soil samples, also said they did not need permission to take them off of private property. It's been said they can tell just by looking from the road what the property is. The meeting on April 10th, I do believe was an OMAFA rep, was asked for the results. And I still haven't got them. I do believe this official plan for South Frontenac was based on 2020's provincial policy statement, not the current 2024 policy statement. The area I'm speaking about is approximately 3,500 acres in the Portland district. Out of that 3,500 acres, I had went around and spoke to the property owners, and they agree to me with, everybody agreed it's not prime agriculture land. Nobody's arguing the fact that it is agriculture. Nobody's arguing that fact. It's a prime agriculture. As soon as you put that word in front of prime, put that word out there, prime. Instead of just agriculture, it says prime. This completely changes the whole property rights. It restricts us. I'll get to that in a minute. So I've already mentioned that I had over 60% of the property owners against this prime agriculture. And we were at the meeting in April. April 3rd, I put an email into the clerk, and he replied to me stating there was that the official plan had already been sent to Frontenac County, and which I found hard to believe because the official plan had not been passed by council yet on April 10th. That I have the email to prove it, not with me today. So that's why we couldn't address the council on April 10th. Not only was I there, but there was a number of farmers there, property owners, which I don't think is right. Somebody was being untruthful because the official plan had not reached Frontenac County yet, because it had not passed South Frontenac. Now, for some reason, I can't say why, the bylaw in 2003 zoning in the area I'm speaking about, the Portland district. I wasn't the owner of the property at the time, my father was. It was taken and zoned RU. I don't know why. I don't know what it was before then. I remember there was a big, all the neighbors were talking and stuff. I don't know why it was taken out of agriculture, if it was agriculture. but in 2003, the area I'm speaking of was designated as RU. I'm assuming it was to allow for expansion. That's an assumption. I didn't go back and check the records. It could be because the municipal drain runs through the center of the area I'm speaking of. I can't say for sure why it was designated RU. My understanding, bylaws and laws have got to apply to everybody, not just a certain criteria of people, such as the ones in South Frontenac they have outlined on the maps as prime agriculture. And with today's society and all these different groups, I feel we're being clearly discriminated upon. The restrictions that are put on us. The restrictions, my goodness. If I hadn't started my final lot creation on my property, I may never got one if this prime agriculture is approved. Oh, I forgot to mention. It's always boiled down to money. If this does pass, apparently, we could have it chained back at a cost of almost $2,400, which is something we've never been really addressed legally in the beginning with. The only reason I knew about any of this prime agriculture and the people in the area was when the solar panel companies addressed us. We had approximately 500 acres that were going to be with property owners for mega solar panels. A lot of it was scrubland, what I call scrubland. 3 to 4 inches of soil, no good for agriculture. It was a chance for us farmers to actually have a steady income. My personal finances losses, if this would have went through, but because it was being proposed as prime agriculture, my losses were $5,000 a month. Over 25 years, that's $2.2 million that was taken away from me. I'm still unclear. Over the years, things have changed as to lot development. I'm sure that there was 5 lots per parcel of property. 3. Anyway. Now, I basically already covered the financial statement or losses for myself. That's a lot of money. I'm 60 years old, gonna be. I was, for once in my life, I was really hoping that I would have a steady income until my retirement if I lived to 65 or 85, sorry.
Just to let you know, we're getting close on your time.
But yeah, I think you can understand where I'm coming from. It would have been guaranteed income until for 25 years. I was working with solar panel companies and they thought it was a great idea. Solar panels are not a complete loss like a city. High rises, 25 years, they can be taken down. The land can be restored. I was working with the companies and they thought it was a great idea because we're gonna space them out. I was gonna sacrifice a bit more land that I could still take the hay off the crop, hay off the land, and still be farming the property. It's not a loss. But oh no, not with prime agriculture. Prime agriculture kills everything. We had 2 of them. And the second one's approaches, and I said to them, we've been through this, it's not gonna work. That's when I started doing more investigations or homework. It's not just personal losses. This is prime agriculture. It's also losses to South Frontenac. Lot creations. Frontenac County, new houses, more people, more taxes.
Okay.
I don't want to see the places build up any more than anybody else, but I can't stop. Nobody can stop progress.
Okay, thank you very much. That, you've had your time on that. Is there one final ask that you want to make at this point in time?
Any more?
Yeah, we're done in the 10 minutes and that. So is there one succinct
Oh,
ask?
I think I pretty much covered everything. If
Okay.
I could have a few more moments.
No,
I think,
no, well, you can't. It's, we've gone to the maximum of the 10. But
Oh.
if you had a succinct ask at the end, that would be nice.
pardon me?
What are you actually asking this
Oh.
committee?
I would just certainly appreciate it if we could leave the zoning on the Frontenac County maps as it is.
As it is
Frontenac
right
County
now.
maps as it is right now shows a certain area of agriculture. Just please leave the prime word out.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's all we've been asking.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now, are there any questions? Ms. Fleischman? No. Mr. Fowler?
I understand what he's asking, and I'm okay with that.
Okay,
Sorry, I missed that.
He understood what you're asking.
Yeah.
Thank you.
okay. Counselor Vanderwall? Counselor Smith?
I just want to say that we understand what you're asking for, but I do know that the province is involved in saying what is agriculture and prime agriculture. Whether or not we can do anything at this table, once South Frontenac has passed it, and if it is a provincial designation, then you would have to do your own zone change, which might cost you $2,400, but it may be worth thousands of dollars to you down the road.
This is a might or,
No, I'm just saying that's where I see it going. Maybe we could ask the planners what the process would be if we pass it as it is today.
No, we're gonna ask Sonia here, who's the planner.
Thank you through you, Madam Chair. I have this in my presentation, which I'm going to speak to, or I can do it now. It's up to you.
You can do it in your presentation.
Okay.
then. Okay. Anything else, Counselor Smith? Okay, and my question, I'm looking forward to the presentation as well, because when I read through, it was quite clear that there is a mechanism for challenging it. It says if the affected owner believes that their soil classification is incorrect and that the new designation should not apply, they can have an independent soil survey done by a qualified professional and apply to the township to amend the designation. Have you done that yet?
I don't really feel I should be doing it because I don't want to change. It's the township that wants to change it, not me.
What I've just heard, and we'll find out more from the planner, is it's actually the province that has the change of it, and that the township just is the party that has to go along with the change that's been made by the province. But there is a mechanism in here quite clearly that you can do your own soil samples, and if the high price is $2,400 and you're saying that this has resulted or will result in a loss of income for you, I think it might be worth your while to challenge it, but the province is involved in this. And OMAFRA that you said you haven't got a copy of that report of, have you sent them a registered letter requesting it or anything of that nature?
I have spoke to several different people in the Ford's office, the provincial office. From what I can understand, the 2024 provincial policy statement or standards does not use the word prime.
Yeah.
They use the word farmland or they use the word agriculture. The key word is prime. If we can eliminate that key word prime, this would resolve a lot of issues.
Okay, I'll go back to my question because it sounds like OMAFRA was involved in this, and
They
I-
aren't any,
a verbal discussion and agreement is worth as much as the paper it's written on. You need to have a paper trail. So I would urge you, if you have challenges to this, how they manage to identify it differently and have your paper trail of it with a registered letter, not just an email. And that way you'll get a response back usually. But it sounds like, we're not challenging the provincial stuff at this point in time, but that's my 2 cents, and I'm looking forward to hearing the legal aspect of it from the planners, that this is their bread and butter. So I appreciate what your argument is, but I want to hear now what we're responsible with. And keep in mind, this is just a committee, not council.
understood.
Okay,
I
Thank you
just
very
know
much.
if I didn't come here, I would forever
Yep.
have to hold my peace.
thank you very much. Okay. All right. Now we're going to have briefings.
What,
You may sit down. You may sit down.
okay.
Yeah,
You
okay.
like me to sit down there?
Yeah, you can sit down. Okay, now we're at reports to the Planning and Advisory Committee. You'd like me to read that or? Yeah, okay, all right. Okay, didn't have anything under briefing.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do Sonia's briefing at this point in time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Good morning. Yes, I apologize. It wasn't listed as a briefing, but it's a big deal to do a new official plan. So I'm not going to be long. I've only got about 6 or 7 slides, but there were a few things that I wanted to address with respect to South Frontenac's official plan. Oh, hold on, let me see if I can get this to work. Thank you. So in terms of the official plan process, South Frontenac started this journey back in 2019. It has taken a while, but in their defense, there was a pandemic, and they also underwent quite a few staff changes at one point as well. I will say though, having it done over the course of that time, they've done extensive public engagement, including engagement with First Nations governments and Indigenous communities. So I applaud them for that. That was very well done. And we've been very fortunate, and I want to thank township staff for including county planning staff throughout the process of creating this official plan. So it was adopted by Township Council on May 20th, 2025. Now, I do want to clarify something just based on something that Mr. Leonard had said was an approval in April. So there was an adoption by Township Council in April, I believe it was April 8th of this year. Unfortunately, there was something administratively that didn't happen, and it had to go back and be adopted one more time, and the correct notice of decision issued. So it was first adopted in early April. The official adoption with the notice of adoption, though, is being considered by the county as May 20th of this year. In terms of the modifications that are before the committee that we want to present to county council, they are relatively minor in nature. They're really for clarification, mainly to ensure consistency with the provincial planning statement and compliance with the county official plan. There also were some comments that we received from the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, so MECP, that we received about a week after the May 20th adoption by Township Council. Again, those were mostly clarifications and really minor, and they had to do with things such as the development policies for waterfront properties, some of the natural heritage policies as well. So just minor clarifications from them. The modifications, the draft modifications were presented to the South Frontenac Township Council 2 nights ago on October 21st, and they were endorsed. So we will have that written motion available on the county council agenda that this goes to in November. But I can at least verbally say that they were endorsed by the Township Council just this past Tuesday. Now, in terms of prime agricultural areas, so I did want to address this. I can clarify because I just double checked. The 2024 provincial planning statement does include the definition of prime agricultural areas. So it does distinguish still between prime agricultural area from other rural lands. What the 2024 PPS does is it basically directs municipalities to use what is called an agricultural systems approach. So you're not just looking at the lands with the best soils, you're looking at a whole system related to agriculture. And to be honest, municipalities like ourselves that, Southwestern Ontario does agriculture very differently from how we do agriculture. So I think for a long time, in my experience here in this part of the province, is we've always used an agricultural systems approach. So the first thing in that system is the land classification. And I don't disagree with Mr. Leonard when he says that the Canada Land Inventory is very much out of date, but it is unfortunately the only system we have because we cannot go on to private property and take soil samples. I know Mr. Leonard made a reference to some samples being taken by township staff, but I don't know the context or history of that, so I'm not going to speak to it any further. But I can say that generally municipalities do not enter people's property without their permission. So because we don't have that available to us, we have the Canada Land Inventory. We also look for large undeveloped rural parcels. We look for those large parcels not being broken up by a lot of adjacent sensitive uses. And really, as a planner, when I say that, I mean small rural residential lots, because the more residential use you put into an agricultural rural area, the province requires what's called minimum distance separation anytime you're going to have livestock facilities and barns. So all of a sudden, the more residential properties you have, you shrink the area in which you can have livestock and manure facilities. The other thing that we look for is existing agricultural activity. So again, it's not just the land that the animals are grazing on or they're growing the crops on, but you're looking for on-farm diversified uses or other related agricultural uses, such as a farm implement store, which maybe that's not where you grow the crops, but they're part of the broader agricultural systems approach. So that is the approach that the township used when they were looking at prime agricultural areas for their new official plan. It is true, there are a lot more restrictions that come with prime agricultural areas, and the number one with that is that lot creation is very limited. There are only very specific times that you can sever off a lot in prime agricultural area. And again, as I mentioned, that's because the more residential lots you add, you shrink that area that farms and barns and manure facilities can be located. The provincial direction is very clear in terms of the lot creation and what's expected. So it's not discretionary. So the reason we have made no changes is because the township followed the correct process and the policy wording they have in the new official plan complies with the provincial planning statement. Now, I understand concerns such as Mr. Leonard's with soil classification. Unfortunately, the only avenue left open is the one that I listed in the report, which the chair had alluded to, is that if an individual truly believes that they should not be in a prime agricultural area, they need to do their own soil survey. You hire what's called an agrologist. That's someone who specializes in soils to do that soil survey and then apply for an amendment. And I know that's not ideal, but it is really the only mechanism that we have available to us because we have to ensure that the document gets passed in accordance with provincial policy. So that I did want to address prime agricultural areas specifically because of Mr. Leonard's concerns. I'm just going to highlight a couple of other areas here with the new official plan. Includes policies for decentralized or communal water and wastewater servicing, which is a first in the province. So again, I want to thank township staff for their collaboration and their patience as we worked through that first set of policies. We look forward to seeing how that plays out. The policies essentially outline where decentralized services are required, such as in settlement areas, versus where they're optional and under what circumstances they could be used. So, we believe this is going to have a very direct and meaningful impact on how South Frontenac will grow into the future. And that is really the last couple of slides that I wanted to refer to, was specifically about growth management. We know that with the proximity to the border with the city of Kingston, that South Frontenac does receive a lot of pressures for additional growth and redevelopment. Again, through the provincial policy or planning statement, they require that the majority of our growth is directed to our settlement areas, which is our hamlets throughout the townships in Frontenac. Decentralized services or communal services are going to allow us to do higher densities and new housing forms and options that are not currently available. And you are going to have people in your communities that are going to move because they no longer want a big house on a big property, which will free those homes up for other people who do want that larger lot, larger house, rural lifestyle. What we have done with respect to the growth management and have worked on, again, with the township staff, and I thank them for their collaboration, their work with us on this, is we've identified what are called future secondary planning areas, which are going to be areas that are focused on for future study and growth. And I've got an excerpt from map H here on the screen, which shows these, secondary planning areas. They're essentially the hamlets, the designated settlement areas, and then the hatched green are additional lands that they don't include prime agriculture or environmental protection. They're generally within about 1 kilometer of the settlement areas, but there's a couple of instances you can see, particularly as you get down towards the boundary with the city of Kingston, there's a few main arterial corridors where they're also looking at some potentials for future growth. So this isn't to say this is exactly where growth is going to go, but what the policies for the future secondary planning areas do is they indicate that this is where the township is going to start, particularly with investigations for groundwater, because you need the supply of the water in order to be able to accommodate the growth. So that's going to be how they direct their own sort of internal work going forward in terms of doing secondary plan for future development. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Smith.
Just back to that map, there was a red section at the top.
Oh, yes, my apologies. I wanted to show those, so I cut everything else off. The outlined area in red is Frontenac Provincial Park.
Okay, Councillor Vanderwall, any questions? Councillor Fowler? Ms. Fleischman? Nobody online? Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. I appreciate that. And
You're
I'm
very-
sure the presenter probably has learned something too. Thank you.
I thank you. I also do want to note, because we had a conversation earlier, there were 7 actually, spots within the document where there was a section reference that digitally it got replaced with an error code. So I'm not sure how that happened because it was not in the copy that was adopted by the township. So I believe I've got a gremlin in my computer somewhere potentially, but we're going to sort it out. And so everything that will appear for county council on November 19th, I believe it is, will be shown correctly.
Okay. Okay, just a footnote in that, because of the size of the information that arrived in that, I actually had to have it printed here and that because it overwhelmed my computer system that. So I think maybe a heads up to any of the counselors and that there might be available a copy of it already for them in case that's a problem, or send it out somehow in a batch that people that have smaller ability to print that many pages. It's 513 pages today. That's a lot.
I'll have a conversation with Madam. I'll have a conversation with Madam Clerk about that, and we can maybe give
Thank
people
you.
heads up, and people can request it.
Thank you.
if they like.
Councillor Fowler or Councillor Vanderwall.
The only comment I would make, we have other areas in the township where actually the farmers came to South Frontenac and asked to have all the land designated
Designated what?
as prime ag, because they wanted it to be left agriculture also.
Okay, so some asked for designation, but did you act on that in any way,
Yep,
shape or form?
yep. Yep, it's prime ag.
Okay,
It's all
so,
been
so
zoned.
there was communication then to
Yes, and
Omafra?
all the other farms that are Sunbury, Inbury, all those places that have these large tracts of land that all are in the same designation, were all notified and none of them asked to have it removed.
Okay, so South Frontenac sounds like it was proactive in that regard. Councillor Fowler, did you,
Yes, just briefly looking at the map again, all the white areas, are they all considered to be prime agriculture? Like I'm looking at areas around a lot of the lakes and that as well.
No, through you, Madam Chair. So this map does not show the land use designations. It only shows the settlement areas and the future secondary planning areas. So there's a different map. I apologize, I don't have it in the slide, but there are rural lands, there are prime agricultural lands, settlement areas, environmental protection. So I would say the majority is designated as rural lands, but that's not what's shown on this map.
Is that available from anybody in the public?
It is, yeah, there was a link in the report to the webpage with all the maps, and we're gonna make sure for county council that all of the maps, there'll be a whole map package included as well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, so we'll move forward now to report. Oh, we have a motion here, I think.
Yes, so that is moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Vanderwall. Be it resolved that the County of Frontenac Planning and Economic Development Advisory Committee recommends to County Council that in accordance with Section 1734 of the Planning Act, RSO Chapter P13, the Corporation of the County of Frontenac hereby approves the official plan of the Township of South Frontenac attached to Report 2025-081 as Attachment 1, as it was adopted on May 20th, 2025 by Township Bylaw Number 2025-041, including maps A through I and appendices A through E, with the modifications listed in Attachment 2 to Report 2025-081.
Okay, any questions, concerns? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, now, let's check. We are here, right?
Yes, we're here.
We're here, okay. We put two together. Okay, we have Plan and Economic Development Advisory Committee on the KMP Trail Draft Bench Dedication Policy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've brought this draft policy forward for the committee to review and provide comments on. Once we've received input from the committee, we'll take a draft online for community input before we seek to integrate it into the KMP Trail Management Plan. So I'd be pleased to take any questions or suggestions at this time, as we're not passing it as policy right now. This is an input opportunity.
Start this way. Councillor Vanderwall.
My only comment in the report was the fixed dedication terms, commonly 5 to 10 years with renewal option. All you're doing there is creating staff work. All the benches that have been dedicated in South Frontenac, if they're willing to pay to install it, put the base, all of that in, South Frontenac pays for the base and we do it ourselves, but the bench has to be a certain bench. There is no renewal because I'd like to know what office person is going to sit there and said, well, Fred's up this year, Susie's up next year, and go through that process. So I don't have a problem if somebody wants to pay for a bench. I think that's a great idea. But I also think there shouldn't be those terms on it. It should be they have paid for it. And whatever that fee is, if you want to make it that there's a built-in fee, whatever. But I don't think there should be a renewal. That's just my only comment on what was there.
Okay, Councillor Fowler, anything? Smith, sorry, Fowler. Fowler, I'm looking here.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to have this, but then again, I agree with Councillor Vanderwall that, time limits, aren't really necessary. I know these things might have a lifetime, like how long will a bench last? What's the weather conditions? If it gets damaged or something like that and some kind of weather thing, who's going to look after it?
Okay, Councillor Fowler, do you have any questions? Okay, Smith.
I really
Smith,
don't have
I'm-
anything to say other than we
More
need to
coffee.
encourage this to happen because benches along the way is excellent for the users of the trail.
Okay, Ms. Fleischman, any? Put your mic on, please.
I'm pretty loud already. My only comment was, I was thinking about, because you mentioned the benches, are they ever vandalized and who maintains that? Is that our responsibility? And wouldn't the weather conditions be more conducive now? I think a lot of people are doing composite benches.
No, I'd like to hear the response from Richard here on that.
So we haven't had much vandalism. We've had vandalism beside our benches, but not on our benches so far. We've had benches installed since 2021 on the trail is between Sherbet Lake and Orser Road. So we have a set of benches. The material at that time we chose to go with wood, but the structures can be replaced with composite materials as necessary. The concern with the composite is it gets hot in the sun, and it's not comfortable for some trail users. Just to speak to the renewal term or whatever, I think perhaps we can reframe that to be not necessarily a renewal, but our agreement to maintain the bench as paid for maybe expires after 10 years. So if someone comes to us because the bench is worn out or needs replacing, and they are expecting us to fulfill that because they've already paid their cost, we may we may say our commitment was to maintain it for 10 years and that's expired or something to that extent.
Okay, I'm gonna put my first kick at the can in here. I had no problem with having the idea of renewal. To me, this is economic development that should be an advertising component on the back side of it. And that's so if you are a business that you want them to go to and that, put the advertisement there and use it as an advertising tool. And at the 5-year mark, if you want to renew it, it's a lower cost because the bench is already installed, but it should be a tool that is involved in promoting the businesses along the area. Also, the directional piece in that, when I read through the report that of the KMP Trail, there's a lack of knowledge for lots of people, and that as to what is open and what is available, et cetera. So having good information, you could even have historic stuff on it. But one of the things that crossed my mind is you didn't have a dollar figure involved, and I agree with the standardization of the bench and making sure that it's weather resistant and, you know, has the coating on it that you can use water to wash off the graffiti and that there are things that can be done to help minimize that. But I do see that there could be a real opportunity for making this bit of revenue generating as well as supporting the businesses in the area. Do you realize you're 2 kilometers away from this cafe and that continue walking? It can be very good. And I think that we could end up with lots of benches along that way, and somewhere along the line when we're looking at toilets, probably the same idea, and that to have some sponsorship, much like puppies down in Kingston, which was the Leon's and K-Rock centers. So having advertising on the benches was the first thing that came to my mind when I was looking at it. And making sure that, especially from the install part and that if they're put onto a cement pad, that there is a plate that they are bolted onto and that works well for easy removal rather than just building it in. And I've seen that mistake done repeatedly and you end up with moisture damage and unstable benches. So now, Councillor Vanderwall.
You don't have to do what South Frontenac does, but our benches are destructive proof unless the guy's gonna go into it with that big John Deere snow groomer. Nobody can wreck them. The only thing that they've ever had on a dedicated bench is somebody's peeled the nameplate off. But other than that, all of the ones that we only approve are benches that do not need replacement and will not need to be fixed.
Fleischman?
One more comment based on Judy's comment is, I agree that there's revenue opportunities, but because I'm a recent user of the trail and you're trying to make that trail a natural element, I would probably do less of that and more, and that from a marketing person is crazy. But it's a natural environment where you want to keep it as natural as it can be, and adding that much into it is a lot. That's just to be cautious of that.
Councillor Fowler, finally.
It's a question for Richard. Is there going to be like a trail map, and can there be advertising within the trail map for people that have businesses along the trail?
Yeah, and through the chair, so the proposed policy here is dedication events in memoriam or in celebration of someone's that sort of thing. Generally trying to keep it smooth, or not smooth, but unobtrusive as possible. But we also have a signage program that we work on with local businesses where they pay to play. So they pay to put signs up on the trail, standardized signs where they're included in the trail mapping that's on the trail. And go forward. We've gotten some feedback in the forthcoming report that it's not big enough, and we could do more there. But we do have a program to support businesses and help people find businesses off the trail that's separate from this.
Okay, Councillor Fowler? Not Vanderwall.
My last comment is if you're dedicating a bench, I guess you could put on there Joe ate at at Mom's, and it's 2 kilometers down the road.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Just to elaborate on this point and that, because when we go further into the KMP trail stuff, not only is there the aspect of washrooms and benches, but an overall plan as to where they strategically need to be put would be very helpful. And I haven't seen that mapped out yet. So potentially whenever you look at an economy of scale and that, even for the ordering of benches and that, if we had the overall plan and then had opportunities for people to sponsor the bench, might be helpful. And when you think about the enormous amount of funds that is involved in maintaining the trail itself, let alone any amenities that are needed, and that I have no problem with having some advertising involved along that, as well as some good information that in one shape or form, and that if it could be revenue generating to help subsidize it, it would probably be a good thing.
We certainly can, when we go out to the public, inquire as to like what the scale or level of information that might be included in dedications or sponsorship as part of the program goes forward. So we can gather some public input from our trail community as to seeing what they'd like to see, and from the business community to see if they'd be interested in participating.
That sounds good. And that, and looking at the comments later on, and that there's actually quite a few comments that are in favor of having benches along the way, and that's as well as the bathrooms. So thank you very much for. Okay, now we're at the Plan and Economic Development Trail User Survey results.
Moved by Councillor Leonard, seconded by Ms. Fleischman, that the County of Frontenac Planning and Economic Development Advisory Committee receive the 2025 KMP Trail User Survey results, and further that the results of the 2025 KMP Trail User Survey be considered as part of the upcoming review of the Frontenac KMP Trail Management Plan.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions on that? Ms. Fleischman? Councillor Fowler? Councillor Vanderwall?
I only have one comment, not on this report. Sunday, I was at a restaurant. I won't mention the name then, in case we give it free advertising. There was 8 ATVs that came from Ampa, rented a cabin in Ampa, and were headed 4 hours back to Ampa to stay the night at a restaurant in Verona. So this thing is, I know it's hard to say what's the economic development part of it because you can't put a dollar value on it, but I specifically asked them where they were from and what they were up to, and that was what it was. So
Okay, Councillor Smith.
Just to add to that, there was an ATV run, I believe this weekend, of over 100 ATVers going. I'm not sure where they went, but Jim Knapp did say that it was happening. And also the Snowmobile Club has breakfast in Snow Road, and they're lined up out the door. So there's a lot of snowmobilers waiting for snow, which comes north of Highway 7 in our areas, right, Fred? So I do hope that we support the proposed washroom for Charlotte Lake, which is heated in the winter for the snowmobilers to have a warm bum while they're using the bathroom.
They might be standing. Okay, thank you very much. I thought it was a great report. I'm so pleased that it was done. I was a little disappointed by the numbers, but it was only done over 5 days. Maybe it rained a bit, but the 109 generated responses and that, but the comments were extremely valuable as well. The,
Pardon me, Madam Chair, there were 311 responses over the course of 5 weeks.
right, but over the course of 5 days, when it was done in person, generating 109 responses.
Oh, right. Yeah, we only had resources to be
Yeah.
out in person, and there weren't the people on the trail those days that we were expecting.
Yeah, so that's where part of it and that, and just to note, 153 responses for primary trail activity from bikes, 127 responses from on foot walking, running or hiking, for 280 responses, and then the rest, whether it's ATV, e-bike, snowmobile, horseback or horse buggy and others, 85 responses. So in other words, it had a decent representation that, but to me, one of the more interesting parts was going through all the comments and that, and I was surprised at how few came from outside of our area. And that, when they were asked on page 416 and that of regarding the trail use, the other piece, as in they didn't come from our area, was 22, but in reality, they actually were from very close to our area, and that if they're coming from Lanark or Cottage on Sharbert Lake and they didn't consider themselves part of Frontenac County and that different things, but there's actually very few that came from outside, which was disappointing. I had hoped that there would be more, but a lot of the comments and that. No, I'm making a summary and that. Okay. Well, in summary, and that if you looked at the responses and that, I was struck by how many made note of quiet and no ATVs and that's something that is of note, because I've heard from, the support of how many ATVs are using it, but the majority in that were not of the ATVs, even though it was promoted within the ATV community. I would have thought that it would have been overwhelming responses from the ATV and those types of users and that, but the comments were interesting. Thank you. Councillor Vanderwall.
I think if you want to ask the Frontenac ATV Club for everybody to send in an email, they will, but it's pretty hard to stop 100 bikes and ask them, how do you like the trail? So, and they aren't maybe all the time, the same time when you're trying to do the survey, but if it's used that much, obviously ATVs are a huge part of it, maybe a few too many bikes on it, but no, just kidding.
Yeah. And from these comments, I hope they get summarized better, because it, especially the comments that would help guide us to improve the trail. And that, the innocuous ones don't worry about, but the ones that make real suggestions, I hope when it comes to council that we have a nice summary of it, because not everybody's going to go through pages. Thank you. Okay, anybody else? All right. So we can accept that report. You're going to have a. Okay, we've already got it in here. Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now our communications, and I don't see any listed. Okay, other business, I don't see any listed. The next meeting of the Planning and Economic Development Advisory Committee is scheduled for Thursday, November 27th at 10 a.m. at the County Administration Building. Everybody in agreement? Okay. And now we go to adjournment.
Moved by Councillor Vanderwall, seconded by Councillor Smith, that the meeting hereby adjourn at 10:53 a.m.
All those in favor? Thank you very much. See? That's why I love nameplates.